I like the smiley face name. I had that for a file name myself in this tournament. And it looks like the runners are off here. We should be seeing them sync up momentarily here. HexBlaze stream just a few seconds ahead of Random Paul's, but this is the prologue. We don't have a dash yet, we'll be getting it momentarily, but we're just kind of learning how to do the basics. And, of course, jumping, doing little bunny hops is slightly faster than normal motion. And they're going to do a dash. And we'll be off and running. You can do this. Alright, let's see how these runners fare with the first chapter here, Forsaken City. This is where the tech really starts to come into play here. We got our dash in full effect now. So we're going to be doing some wall bounces by inputting a dash up against a wall and then inputting a jump. Super useful all over the place. So you'll be seeing a lot of that at the beginning, and then you'll be seeing, on HexBlaze's screen here, you'll be seeing our first instance of a reverse hyper. Hyper dashes are inputted by holding down right or down left and inputting a dash and then a jump. And that is one of the fastest ways to move around in the game, so you'll be seeing them do that all over the place. Both these runners, I think we can expect pretty smooth play from both of these folks. Both definitely, I guess, within the mid-tier of times on the leaderboards right now. Both in that kind of sweet spot of 40 OX. HexBlaze going for a nice little skip there over the spikes instead of doing a spike jump. I appreciated that setup. And struggling a little bit doing the neutral jumps here on this last screen on the left side of that wall. If you input jumps in a very specific way, you can kind of just never lose stamina. So you kind of just can climb walls infinitely. It takes forever though, and it's a little bit finicky, but HexBlaze got there eventually. One random Paul right on his tail going into Old Site Chapter 2. This is a very dreamlike section because it's well, it's taking place in a dream. So this is often you'll often hear people say that this is their favorite chapter just because HexBlaze going for an interesting setup there too. It's pretty fast paced and you have these dream blocks here, which is a really cool mechanic. You can just kind of dash indefinitely as long as you're passing through the dream blocks. And it just looks very cool. You can hear Zelda coming through my microphone. Okay, 1 second. Thanks for the heads up. Girl Ham's currently playing Skyward Sword, my bad. Anyways, alright. So where are we? These two runners are both very close to each other at the moment, on the same screen. Although HexBlaze, I think, is a couple seconds behind Random Paul. Just looking at the in-game time. Moving through a challenging room here, both of these folks. That sync always looks really cool if two runners are kind of synced up in that particular moment. And we're going to be moving into the final section here of Old Site. This chapter moves fairly quickly. This race is hot. Hot race. Alright. Moving through a wake here. Both these runners kind of getting caught up on the edges here. The HexBlaze moving through that room with the springs quite nicely. One random Paul hot in his tail at the moment. This sync is so satisfying. Looks good. Moving into Celestial Resort. This is very likely where the race could open up, depending on how these folks have been grinding out this chapter. It's the first long chapter of the run, and there are plenty of cycles to mess up here, so we'll see how these folks fare. But the sync is still absolute fire right now. This is nuts. Although yes, we do have Random Paul with a slight IGT advantage at the moment. And he's pulling ahead RTA as well, as HexBlaze takes a kind of a long death there on this room. Moving through these Dust Bunny rooms here, very tight cycles. You just kind of got to know where you're going before you enter the room in a lot of instances. Let's see how Random Paul does with the switch room here. No problem. And he's going to be doing an extended hyper off of this platform, I bet. Yep, nice, good movement. And he's pulling away a little bit from HexBlaze here, as he's going to be the first one to enter Huge Mess. We have 3 chambers that you have to bring Madeline through just to clean up this dirty, dirty hotel. This room's always, on Random Paul's screen, always a challenge to move through. There's just a lot of things you can bump up against, and I don't know, it takes a long time to optimize for sure. I think you're hearing my AC in the background, Bad Logic. Sorry for all the background noise, it's just kind of a fact of being a living human. Alright, anyways, so we have Random Paul scooting through this bottom section. What's up? Speaking of random noises, my cat made an appearance. Nice. What's up, dude? Okay, anyways. So now we have Random Paul moving into books here. The upper section of Celestial Resort. That was a very well-timed meow, by the way. Alright, so Random Paul moving through books, no problem. That last room is really tricky because you have to maintain your dash momentum at the start in order to get the skip, and he seemingly got through that without an issue. He's moving into the laundry section first, again, kind of opening this race up just a little bit. The practice is very evident for both of these folks here, but Random Paul is just kind of crushing this area right now without much of an issue. No, I'm not microwaving a cat. That's a long story. Anyways. Hey, Bubba. Okay. So Random Paul is going to be moving into the elevator shaft section here. And this first room's really tricky. You gotta catch a really fast cycle here. Random Paul, oh, unfortunately, does the death that I always do at the top. It's a rather tricky screen. Just kind of an awkward climb up. You do run out of stamina kind of towards the top of that climb, so it is all about how you manage that with your jumps at the end. As HexBlaze, hot on Random Paul's tail here, entering the elevator shaft himself, and he clears that climb without an issue. Random Paul, ooh, taking a tough death on the on this bounce room here, where you just gotta kind of catch the edges of these walls here, input a dash up, and then jump, and hope that it works out so that you don't bonk. And Random Paul with the persistence there, opting to go for all 3 bounces there, and he gets it. But that's going to bring HexBlaze in a little bit closer here. Ooh, HexBlaze getting a small hiccup there at the end of the hyper room, but kind of perseveres and figures his way out. As both of these runners are now RTA synced up again. Randompaul still with a slight advantage, but now HexBlaze pulling ahead just a little bit here. This is so tight right now. Amazing. Alright, so the Oshiro fight. My cat has needs right now, but this is a very important part of the run. Okay, so we have HexBlaze moving into this interior room here. Again, pulling ahead a little bit. Lots of lead changes going on right now. And both of these folks, well, this sync is amazing. Both of these folks dodging Oshiro's attacks quite nicely here. This is about as close as it gets right now. Are you serious with that sync, dude? What? What is happening right now? This is wild. Oh my god, who's gonna get out of resort first? Randompaul getting a little bit caught up there. It looks like HexBlaze is gonna be the first out of resort. I think now has a slight lead in game time for the first time in a hot minute. Yeah, so Randompaul is gonna be just a little bit behind in terms of in-game time coming out of the end here. Opting for a very safe finish here to the final Oshiro room. Not going for a lot of fancy hypers and dash jumps and what have you. Oh man, okay, we have a race here for sure. As HexBlaze is entering Golden Ridge, where we are introduced to wind physics, the hottest physics since ice physics. And let's see how these folks fare for this chapter. This is still anybody's race right now. So we have HexBlaze moving through this fancy little bubble room. You can dash out of those bubbles just to kind of avoid this little animation that plays every time that Madeline typically gets out of a bubble. So that's a pretty easy way to save frames in that room. Ooh, Randompaul going with a spicy cloud skip there. Very nice. Let's see how HexBlaze does with this pain in the butt room with the 3 clouds, with the wind kind of working against you. Opting for a safer strat there. That's definitely not a bad call. That room can be a huge time suck if you go for the fast strat. And both of these runners moving into the directional block part of this chapter. HexBlaze going for a skip here where you don't use any of the directional blocks. And moving right along here. Let's see how Randompaul does with this bounce strat up against these spikes. Gets a first try, nice. And HexBlaze is not going for the auto-scroller skip there. It's been very unpredictable whether folks go for that skip or not. Ooh, Randompaul going for the ultra Diablo auto-scroller skip there, but unfortunately it's a little caught up against some edges there. But persistent, if nothing else. Can he save this? No, unfortunately not. That's going to cost him a lot of time, and HexBlaze is just going to take full advantage of that here. Several screens ahead of Randompaul at the moment. Not a great situation for Randompaul, unfortunately, but these auto-scroller rooms are so long, and dying at the end of them is so common and so costly at the same time. So that's going to give HexBlaze quite a nice opening. Again, just playing super conservatively with these auto-scroller rooms. Really just not risking the time loss. I think HexBlaze knows this matchup and is probably just like, okay, I'm going to just not risk it right now. Again, opting for kind of a safer move there at the end of that really tricky room with the intermittent wind. HexBlaze is going to be the first one to move through a cliff face here, where the wind intensifies. Random Paul just a few screens behind at the moment, but he's going to need HexBlaze to kind of choke at the end of this chapter to catch up. Random Paul still going for the risky stuff. Respect that. And gets that nice wall bounce to move ahead a cycle. HexBlaze going for some wave dashes here off of this off of these one-tile pillars. I don't get how people do that. It's just like it's crazy difficult. In terms of just naming for stuff, I guess I should specify that wave dashes are just hyper dashes that you do in the air. For those who are uninitiated. Alright, HexBlaze still holding on to a lead here going into Mirror Temple. It looked like a low 4 ridge for HexBlaze. As Random Paul enters the last room here of Golden Ridge, it's kind of a nice little freebie. The wind's working in your direction for the first time in a while, which is very satisfying. Alright. Alright, so HexBlaze showing off these souped up bubbles that we get in Mirror Temple, where they just kind of keep you going in one direction until you dash out of them. Let's see what he does with the skip here. Going for a nice little wave dash strat. There's a couple of ways you can approach that skip to avoid getting a bubble off to the left. And the wave dash is definitely one of the more consistent ways you can do it. See how Random Paul does with the skip. Takes a death there. Second try. Ooh, nice. Random Paul's going for some faster setups here, which is costing him now a little bit, but we'll see. Let's see how he fares in the long term, because I'm kind of curious to see, you know, how he improves after seeing some of his play. All right, HexBlaze going for the vanilla, I guess, speedrun strat for that room. Not going for the double bubble skip, which nobody in their right mind should go for. Random Paul taking that room pretty safe. And HexBlaze is going to be the first one here to enter the this little nightmare sequence where you control these enemies called Seekers. This is kind of an awkward part of the run because this is the only time that we really control the Seekers in the entire game. And they control a lot differently. Their dash is very floaty and kind of awkward. HexBlaze is doing a very underrated optimization in that fall there, where you kind of just position yourself to the right and then land a little bit right of center. Typically after that fall, you just kind of land, like the game kind of directs you towards the center, but you can kind of do some directional influence up in the air and position yourself to the right when you land. Ooh, very nice hyper strat there from HexBlaze in this unraveling section. Random Paul, again, still pretty close. Like, definitely going for the riskier stuff, but you can see that that's kind of helping him out a little bit. Alright, so HexBlaze here, starting up the last room of Unraveling. This is one of the most stressful moments in Mirror Temple, if not the most stressful. A lot of switches to hit, A lot of those red block obstacles in the way, and the Seeker is just always one step behind you. But he clears that no problem. Very consistent with a lot of his setups. Random Paul here, entering the last room of Unraveling himself. HexBlaze getting search skipped first try, avoiding this entire section where we have to pick up 2 keys. I don't think I've seen a single runner not go for that skip so far this tournament. It's just kind of one of those things you need to know in order to start speedrunning this game. Let's see how Random Paul does with search skip first try, no problem. And HexBlaze entering the Theo section, still holding kind of a considerable lead over Random Paul at the moment. Although we still do have quite a bit of game to be played. Theo movement can really be costly because, again, this is kind of a unique movement style in this run. You don't really see this kind of movement elsewhere because of the way that Madeline's dash kind of changes when grabbing Theo after a dash. So a lot more of that momentum gets preserved and allows you to kind of fly through these rooms really quickly, as you'll see with HexBlaze going for a strat there, zooming across that room without an issue. HexBlaze really kind of just owning this Theo section. This is such a crucial part of the run to have good control over, because if you don't know what you're doing with Theo, it can cost you a ton of time. Going for a nice setup there on this last room of Rescue, who unfortunately drops Theo. Again, you can just see how much you slow down if you have to kind of regroup. You really just got to maintain your momentum as much as possible here. And HexBlaze, the first out of Mirror Temple. Let's see how Random Paul finishes up Mirror Temple here himself. Very impressive Theo section from HexBlaze, and Random Paul's doing pretty well too. Let's see what his approach is to this last room of the Rescue section. Well, before the penultimate room, I guess. Going for a nice little strat there where he uses Theo to kind of bonk a switch there. There's so many different approaches to that last room, which is really cool. And Random Paul still just lagging a little bit behind HexBlaze at the moment, as HexBlaze went for Lake Skip exactly once. Brave soul. A for effort. Gotta respect the effort. And getting that nice little Kevin block skip first try. Or grumble blocks, whatever you want to call them. I think I prefer the term grumble blocks, but whatever floats your boat. Random Paul also going for Lake Skip, doesn't quite get it, and is just going to opt out just like HexBlaze did. Again, props to both of these runners for trying that skip. It's a pixel-specific strat, so going for it in a real-time run is very bold. Oh, you've never heard grumble blocks? I've heard a couple of people call those blocks that. I don't know. Alright. HexBlaze moving through this branching path section very quickly and swiftly. Adeptly. I don't know how many more adverbs I can use there, but going quite fast here. As Random Paul is going to opt not to go for a skip there. That doesn't save a lot of time, but somebody who shall not be named spent like 3 minutes going for it in his last race, but we're not going to name names. Anyways, HexBlaze, approaching the end of this kind of branching path section, it's all about just knowing your route, I guess. Like the rooms that these folks are going to be avoiding are so much slower for the most part. And it's really just about kind of having a knowledge of the route in this section. With great alacrity. That's a good one. Alright, HexBlaze moving into the battle and hair section here. Where, I don't know, we have just a couple of rooms here before the main fight begins. And let's see how HexBlaze does with this dev-intended skip here. Going through this tiny little opening here. How will he do with this section down here? Opting to get the checkpoint, very smart move, because if you don't hit that checkpoint on that platform, you have to start basically from the top of that room again. So smart move from HexBlaze. Again, playing rather conservatively in terms of strats, but it's paying off kind of in spades right now. As onerandompaul is going for kind of the end of this room before the battle and hair section, no problem. Ooh, very nice movement from onerandompaul in that room. That's another area, kind of like the awake section, where if you don't know exactly where you're gonna go, you're gonna lose some frames for sure. See how he does with the dev-intended skip. Opting not to go for it, actually. Respect. And HexBlaze here, starting the battle and fight. Going for lots of hypers here. Kind of risky there at the end. Those crumbling blocks that descend from the top of the screen can cost you a lot of time at the end of that screen if you're not careful. So HexBlaze maybe feeling a little bit more confident at this point. Still holding on to a pretty nice lead, but it could still turn around, you know, with one wrong room, you know. So this is still anybody's match for sure. HexBlaze moving really nicely with these kind of extended hyper dashes. Moving into a vertical section here. And ooh, almost tanked the finish of that room, but kind of came out on top there, just barely. Let's see how onerandompaul's doing here. Also, kind of flying through these rooms without much of an issue at the moment. I feel like a lot of folks who speedrun this game tend to get the battle and section down pretty consistently just because it's one of those like major time suck parts of the run. Where like if you don't have strats in place, you're just going to lose a ton of time. So these runners both kind of putting on a show right now. onerandompaul taking kind of a sudden death there. And also going under battle in there, almost taking the L there, but not quite. As HexBlaze enters the second phase of the battle and fight. Just a few more rooms to go for this runner here. Okay. These ascending and descending blocks are a little bit tricky to get cycles down for consistently, so HexBlaze kind of showing how it's done right there. Without much of an issue. As onerandompaul now just entering the second phase of the battle and fight himself. Her name was Shadowline? Alright, I'm down. I'm down for the name change. That's a pretty cool name. Battling was too mean. Yeah. No, that's fair. If you think about the story of the game, like... I don't know. She ends up being okay. So I can see that for sure. All right, HexBlaze, the first out of the battle. Sorry, Shadowland fight. That's going to take some adjusting. Moving into this last little area of reflection where you just want to get some nice bounces off of these walls here. Nice work from HexBlaze here. Nice, fairly optimal movement. He's going to be coming out of reflection with what looks like a 729, 728. Not bad. Good work. Little Goth, good name. I can get behind that one too. The Caroline. All right, final stretch here. Random Paul wrapping up the battle and fight himself. And it's gonna be tough for Random Paul to come back, but it could still happen. 1500 meters is another kind of turning point for folks where if you kind of get off your mojo a little bit, it could really just sabotage like the entire run. So it's still kind of anybody's race. HexBlaze is just kind of holding on to a nice lead for some time now. Oh no, we have some intel from Random Paul in the chat. Oh, that's no good. Yeah, missing the reset there. Unfortunately. So, another small setback. However, Summit is anybody's game for sure. It looks like HexBlaze has about a minute or so of an advantage. Looking at in-game time. What's up, dude? Hey. Alright, so we have the kind of return of for what is it, Forsaken City here on HexBlaze's screen. Is he going to go for the skip at the end? Opting not to. Again, just kind of playing it safe where he can. So he's going to be the first to enter Old Site, 1,000 meters here. This is a very fun section of the run with lots of fun things you can do with the dream blocks. Let's see how he does with this room. You have to get kind of a nice vertical movement, or you can just go for the spring. I guess that works too. I was going to say, you can do that without the spring, but HexBlaze, again, opting to go for something that's a little bit less optimal, but a little bit less risky at the same time. Getting the strawberry, because why not? Style points. Still holding on to it too. Very nice. Oh yeah, the strawberry in the cutscene. Very good look. And Random Paul just entering 1,000 meters himself. HexBlaze kind of dealing with the moment of truth part of the run here. Again, lots of finicky cycles to deal with, kind of like in Chapter 3. Ooh, gets a little hung up there. Might be a little bit off cycle, but just opting to wait. Not taking a death at the end. Gets through a very long room there without dying. Very important part of the run. Going for the Ultra setup here. Chaining the hypers. Very smooth from HexBlaze. That's going to pay off in spades here, because 1500 is one of the big choke points of the run. Random Paul's going to have to kind of turn on the heat here for 1500, just to kind of maintain their current pace against HexBlaze. You have to start wondering, are these runners on pace right now? And depending on how HexBlaze does, this could be somewhere in the high 30s, maybe a 38 or a 39. Golden Ridge, 2,000 meters for HexBlaze. We have the wind coming back with a vengeance to this room, and the snowball, unfortunately, decking HexBlaze right in the noggin. Unfortunate. Ooh, going for a nice bounce strat there, going up top here, instead of opting for the extended hyper strat down below. Let's see if HexBlaze goes for auto scroller skip. Oh boy, gets to the ascending block and gets the skip first try. Very nice. As Random Paul wrapping up 1500 himself. Let's see how he does with this final room. Opting to not go for the slightly swaggier cycle at the end of 1500. Alright, let's see what Random Paul's approach is here to Golden Ridge, 2,000 meters here. I keep calling it Golden Ridge. It's just 2,000 meters, man. Gets that skip first try. Avoiding having to kind of screen transition between the room to the left there. That jump always looks impossible, so it's really cool when runners get it. See how Random Paul does with the snowball room. Gets it first try. That's going to give him a little bit of an advantage after HexBlaze kind of took a death there. That was pretty costly. Now, is Random Paul going to go for auto scroller skip? Yes. And gets it. Alright. Really trying to hold on to this deficit, which is still kind of manageable for Random Paul at the moment. If HexBlaze kind of missteps here, could give Random Paul an opening. Let's see how HexBlaze does with key skip here in 2,500 meters. Struggling a little bit. You have to get Madeline up to a very specific position on the wall there to the left, and he gets it eventually. And putting just a couple of jumps at the end, and letting Madeline do the rest. As Random Paul is wrapping up 2,000 meters. Getting a nice little dash cancel there just to save a few frames. And going into 2,500 himself. As HexBlaze, unfortunately, struggling a little bit here. That skip. Let's see if he goes for door skip. Taking another death. Being very persistent, however. Nice. Third try. Not too shabby. Didn't save any time, but oh well. That doesn't really stop anybody in this tournament from going for it. Let's see how Random Paul does with key skip here. Or bubble skip. Shouldn't it be called bubble skip because we're skipping using a bubble? I don't know. Who am I to make that kind of judgment? HexBlaze firmly on sub 40 pace right now. Maybe if HexBlaze goes really fast, this could possibly be a 38, I think. Random Paul gets that room that HexBlaze was struggling on first try here. And will he get first try door skip? Oh, not quite. Very close. Using the bumper to kind of help him out a little bit. Ooh, unfortunately, just eating into his time a little bit here. Will he go for the switch? Yes, he is going for the switches now. And unfortunately, still fumbling. The problem with opting out of door skip, if you typically go for door skip, is that you tend to forget like how to do it the intended way, as we're kind of seeing from Random Paul here. But moving right along to the end of 2500. Let's check in on HexBlaze here. Getting this climb, going up to, I think, flag 19? We'll see in a second. I always get the flags mixed up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's flag 19, yeah. Getting some nice wall bounces here. Hanging on to a lead against Random Paul. This could be HexBlaze's first win of the group stage. Both these runners looking for a win after a couple of losses against early competitors. HexBlaze putting on a show right now. Definitely dotting the I's and crossing the T's with a lot of these strats. Very tricky jump at the end there. Going for some swag wall bounce strats too. And the little dash crystal skip there too. Very nice from HexBlaze. HexBlaze is now on flag 10. 10 flags to go. Unfortunate death there. That's kind of a costly one. As Random Paul here moving into in the final moments of the downdraft section here, flag 22. Dotting T's and crossing I's, yeah. Is it normal to skip some checkpoints in Celeste racing? Yeah, there are some that you just don't need to grab. It is risky though, because if you die, then you obviously have to go back to your last checkpoint. As we just saw HexBlaze skipping flag 5 there. Not a problem though. Going right to flag 4. Random Paul moving through the updraft section now. As HexBlaze is in the final 3 flags. So it's looking like it's going to be a little over a 38, unfortunately. But still a very good performance. We're looking at a low 39. This could be a nice fat PB from HexBlaze here. See how he does with flag 1 finishing up here. The final moments. HexBlaze is going to finish up with a 39. ... 39-11. GG's. That's a considerable PB for HexBlaze. Forget the previous time. Oh, let me use my fancy commentator controls here and update the winner. Alrighty. So GG's to HexBlaze here. 41 deaths. Very formidable performance. And Random Paul's coming up on the final 10 flags. Unfortunately, this won't be a PB, but it still could be close. It could be close to PB for sure. Skipping flag 8 there, going right to flag 7. Always a nerve-wracking moment when folks skip flag 8, but it does save quite a bit of time. What a fantastic race from both of these folks. As Random Paul here is finishing up final 5 flags. 4 flags to go. Three flags to go. Going for the swag jump there, instead of dashing across. Flag 2. Ooh. Unfortunately, the wall bounces just didn't work out as he had intended there. Gets it the next time, though. Both these runners showing a lot of potential to improve their times. Random Paul going for a lot of fancy stuff, just not quite connecting, maybe as much as he had hoped. There's always the next race. Random Paul's going to finish up with what looks like a 41-13. GG's to both these runners. just a couple minutes apart from each other. Definitely, Random Paul definitely kept it within arm's reach for most of that race. So that was a very entertaining watch, very exciting to commentate. Let's see if we can get these folks in for a quick interview. I don't know if that's happening, but we'll see. All right, just 1 second here. Looks like we have Paul here. Might be coming in for an interview to chat real quick. Yo, congrats on the race time. That was like a 41, right?
Yeah, that was a 41:13. Not a PB, but
yeah,
okay.
But you definitely looked like you were kind of experimenting with some strats there, and you connected on some, but maybe some of them didn't quite go as planned. But
I just need to work on the last 2 chapters.
Yeah, definitely. Your early game was looking really smooth, and actually you were like neck and neck against HexBlaze for probably like the first 3 or 4 chapters.
Are we gonna get HexBlaze in here?
I don't know. Not entirely sure.
It says he can't join.
In
the Twitch chat. Oh, that was a really fun race, though.
It was, yeah, it was a really fun race to watch for sure. You two were within 12 seconds of each other in terms of PBs, so it definitely could have gone either way. And I think HexBlaze ended up just destroying his old PB and got like a low 39, so...
Yeah. I think he went from... What was his old PB? He PB'd by like 40, 50 seconds?
Yeah, it was like a 50-second PB. I don't know the exact time. I think it was like a 39:40 something.
That's great. Congrats to him.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of fantastic PBs in this tournament so far, so...
Yeah, it just really gives everyone like a chance to improve, because you're doing it's the competitive nature of racing, plus forces you to do no resets, which is one of the biggest things that like starts those PBs is just continuing with the run and improving as you go.
Yeah, it can definitely hold people back if you get stuck in like the reset mentality, for sure. So how are you feeling about the rest of your matches? Do you have any more scheduled at the moment, or what's coming up?
I think I have one coming up against Hia. I can't pronounce their name. Hia?
Is that like Hia?
Yeah, Hia. Coming up at, I think, 3 p.m. EDT.
Oh, wow. Okay, so like today.
Yes.
Like, you can get lunch and then
yeah.
you're like...
That was the goal.
Nice, okay. Good plan, good plan.
So yeah. And... Nice. I think I'm just gonna practice a bit more.
Yeah, get some ILs in, yeah.
I do want to improve on those last 2 chapters. I do believe that my early game is like really solid at this point, but it's just the last few chapters, Mirror Temple, Reflection, and Summit is the biggest improvements that I can get in and get a really good PB in, so.
Yeah, have you spent a lot of time like grinding ILs for the early chapters, or...?
I started off practicing speedrunning by just doing ILs, so individual levels, and practicing like the first chapter, the second chapter, and not practicing anything else until I get a considerable time, like maybe a minute above the IL record at the time, and or maybe not for City, because it's manageable to get like 10 seconds above IL record
right, yeah.
For Forsaken City.
Same with Old Site, yeah.
Yeah, but like things like Celestial Resort took a really long time to practice, and Golden Ridge, because They're slightly longer chapters than the first two, but they're
Right.
both really fun to practice, and it just like Celeste is just an overall fun game.
Definitely, yeah. It's highly addictive for sure. Cool. Any final words before we sign off?
Nothing really. It's just good luck to all the runners that are running today, and hope that this tournament gets even better as we get closer and closer to like more the finals or semifinals or what have you.
Yeah, that still feels like a ways away because we still have a couple
Mhm.
more weeks in like the group stage, and then so it's nice. It's kind of lasting for a while, which is cool, giving folks a lot of opportunities to improve and stuff. So
But yeah,
awesome. Well, thanks so much, Paul, for coming in and chatting, and
no
thanks to
problem.
everybody for watching. We're gonna finish up this episode, but I think there's another thing coming up pretty soon. And you have your match coming up in an hour, so keep it locked on Speed Gaming. We have more races coming at you.